coming through. But on my panel, I'll start off with my left. Unusually, do I start off with my left? But I have Samson Kasumba, the gentleman I've been seated with on the same table since 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Yes, and we'll still be together till 9 p.m. Samson Kasumba is a news anchor and senior reporter with NBS Television. A pleasure having you. It's been a long time. It certainly has been a long time. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. He's he's drawing closer to the middle, but he's always seated in the corner there. And when we do get Fabrice, Fabrice Rolinda as well as Raymond Mujuni, the table will be filled up. And then we have none other than a senior comrade, Mr. Vichachi, who is an editor with the Daily Monitor. I was just eavesdropping on the I pretended not to be part of the conversation earlier, but the conversation that was being had here, it was a very beautiful one about the contribution some of our senior comrades have made to this journalism fraternity. Thank you so much, Mr. Vichachi, for coming up.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations upon the
new formation.
Thank you. Certainly not a political.
Oh, yeah, sure. A new assignment.
I think the terminology comes from the background of military service, because certain people think in formations and all.
Yes.
But I also think, like Charles, that the echelons of journalism have a lot of work to do with us, the young people. We're going to need more mentorship that cuts across the boardroom wars and everything. And I think this is a very good example that he's actually here.
Yes.
And
I'm always humble.
Yeah,
very
humble.
Pleasure to be here. And certainly we have many things to
And the gentleman who takes the microphone before it is given to him. Okay, that's not the description. We do have Joseph Sabiti, also a senior reporter with NBS. And Joseph, it's always a pleasure.
It's okay, you have poured water. Good morning.
And he's also permanently seated in the chair right there. But of course, there are lots of stories that have made headlines this week, but only time may allow us to discuss a few. And those are the stories that we are going to be paying attention to, particularly this Friday. And starting off, of course, with the latest. Why not? The one that took the world by storm, Uganda by storm. Well, quite a number of people were surprised about this breakup, but a few have seen it coming earlier on, not only after the 24th November delegates conference that did happen, but also back then. Joseph Sabitia, I'd like to start off with you. Did you see this departure coming? Did you see the new formation coming into play in our political arena?
I think as far as immediately after it was all clear that if you listen to General Muntu's concession speech at the delegates conference, he clearly pointed to where the future was when he said, I'll embark on a tour of the country and my political decisions about my political future will be made next couple of weeks or months. And so it was clear when he went across the country, when he at the inner workings of his group, General Muntu and other party leaders and about 26 members of parliament were already actually, at the departure lounge. I think what we were waiting for was the official announcement. And I remember the day we showed up at Africana, expecting the big announcement, and we got an Amama Mbabazi sort of, we will soon announce that we are going to announce that we will announce. But it was clearly not a surprise to me. I think General Muntu and team left the FDC a long time ago. They just left officially this week.
Okay, I will be getting back to you, just particularly about the meeting that delivered the announcement, although it came fast on social media. Mr. Vichachi, did you see this coming as well?
Yeah, certainly this was expected, and the question is why it took this long. Like Sabiti said, the indications were all clear.
Consultations were still going on, maybe.
Yeah, what actually surprised, what I find surprising is that the new formation came without a formation. So the form of the new formation, after all this time of preparation, I expected that it would have been much clearer than it was yesterday when it was unveiled. Okay. But this was always coming.
Any surprise that you did get in this new formation forming? Mr. Vichachi says there seems to be no clear form in this new formation.
I am very wary of associations built on hatred whether it is an association built on hatred for Milton Obote, or it is an association built on hatred for the colonialists, or it is an association built on the hatred of Yoweri Museveni. Now there is an association built on hatred of Besigye. There are also associations built on the hatred of Muntu. Now there are new associations being built around the hatred of People Power and Bobi Wine. Now associations built on hatred do not hold, because once the hatred subsides, which was the glue, the association disintegrates.
That takes me back to my question. Did you see this coming? Did you see the split?
Yes, because the associations within FDC were never built on ideology. They are built on hatred of Yoweri Museveni.
Well, we'll be getting back to the discussion. Joseph, I want to come back to you. Before Fairway Hotel meeting, before 24th November last year, I mean the time that Honorable Patrick Amuriata Boy was elected, was this ever a united FDC? Because I did host General Muntu during his tenure as a president, and he clearly intimated, although never wanted to mention names, and said, I am being fought. I am working with a party where leaders do not believe in my ideology. That's first of all, because he always said, I think party building structures is the first priority for me, not really defiance. We also got to see a formation of the Katonga side, although the party president says that was particularly mental health defiance. Was it ever a united FDC, even before the delegates conference that ousted General Muntu?
In every political formation, it would be naive to expect uniformity, to expect no conflict. I think the strength of any organization, whether political, social, or even charity, or even church, is about how you deal with contradictions and how you deal with divergent views. And I think for me, that is what bothers me about our political formations, the intolerance, the gross intolerance, especially those in leadership, how they deal with dissenting voices. Now, I have been to Nambole, I think, every time they have been there in the recent times, I've been there. And I have paid more attention to the unspoken, the behind-the-scene politics. What these people, the people we relate with, whisper to us behind the scenes. And you'll be amazed at the level of hatred. And when the Honorable Dongo Oto said, there are people in FDC who hate themselves more than they hate the enemy, I can affirm to that. I produce a show. I know that there are leaders in the FDC who cannot sit on the same table. Same leaders calling for dialogue, calling for an all-inclusive government, an all-inclusive leadership. They cannot sit on this table together to have a conversation. What am I driving at? Let's flash back. I think the only time the FDC has a bit of cohesion was in its inception days, when Dr. Besigye was the man who had, paid the ultimate price, had gone into exile, and so his popularity was wavering. And that is where the trouble between him and General Muntu actually started. At the time when Dr. Besigye was in exile and they were mooting an idea of a presidential candidate, somehow, in the absence of Dr. Besigye, General Muntu pipped his head and thought, thought, why not? Yeah, why not if not? No, he actually pipped his head, and I think the Besigye loyalists quickly slapped it back and said, hey, and challenge Dr. to especially the presidential seat has not just become a criminal today. Right from the days of reform agenda, the metamorphosis, there was a problem with anybody who, who got outright. And then they saw him as the face of the opposition, and many of them see him as such. But fast forward, Dr. Besigye runs against General Muntu, beats him for the party presidency, right? Yes. Muntu returns to Najana Nkumbi. They return again at the to pick a presidential flag bearer. Dr. Besigye beats him again. He returns to Najana Nkumbi. They go for another election, in the recent one in the 2016 general elections for flag bearer. Dr. Besigye beats him again. Yes. So clearly within the party there was preference for the operations and the support of Dr. Besigye. Muntu against Besigye, there was clear preference. Never mind the dirty propaganda, the nasty words they said to each other. That was clearly established. But also, now fast forward, Nandala versus
Muntu,
versus
General
Muntu.
Yes.
I think that's one of the most nasty campaigns I ever saw. And I won't forget Major Baramira Ruranga, absolutely, for that. He stood out, he was raising questions about Muntu's ethnicity, for example. And it was, you know, the whole conversation about whether he's Ugandan or a Munyarwanda came into picture. Nandala loses, is on the table, the idea of a farmer's party. So the difference between the Honorable Nandala and General Muntu is that one made real the threat, another one threatened and undermined the party from within and chose to stay. And so, has it been a united party? Well, what happened to, how did Betty Kamya walk out? What happened to the different, you know, the negotiation for the secretary slot, how Alice Alaso came in against a more established Betty Kamya. The FDC has had its challenges, and the fact that it is still a party, I think, speaks about certainly certain strengths that it has inhibited.
All right, Mr. Bichachi, still talking about the FDC, before we focus on the departure and how it came through, FDC existed for over 10 years now that FDC has existed. There's been more of the ping-pong game. Who is right, who is wrong, to the extent of leaders saying, I am being fought, but also to the extent that some members believe stand on another party ticket to parliament and yet still say, I subscribe to the Forum for Democratic Change. This is a party that has been grumbling and mumbling within itself, and it only was time that would tell whether it has cohesion or not.
Yeah, I think it has been presented, the conflict in the party has been presented as a conflict between two ideologies, defiance and organization. And I think as media, we have failed to interrogate those two things. Because I really don't, there's nothing ideological about those two things. I think there have been personal issues within the party, and they are being coached in the frames of ideology and organization, because quite frankly, every organization, even at a very rudimentary level, will operate through organizing specific things. So there's nothing about an ideology called organization. It's not an ideology. And defiance is not it's a practice. It's not necessarily an ideology. So it's so the issue in FDC, I think, has not been ideological. I think there has been an issue of conflict between individuals. I think Besigye has dominated that party, and you can appreciate why, because he went out, he was the early bird. He went out and started confronting the government and driving opposition politics. Muntu has come in and has tried to get up and occupy that space, but unfortunately, he has not been given that opportunity. And this has been completely very democratic situations where there have been elections, and Besigye has beaten Muntu 3 times. Nandala Muntu, it was a very contested election, and I think in many ways what is happening today could be tracked to that. Because the win was so narrow and it was disputed, and you can see that the players are the same. So the issues in FDC, I think, as a party today, what we are seeing is a manifestation of ambitions that did not coalesce around a single party vision. Okay. Yeah.
And that brings me to Samson. Looking at the kind of analysis that Joseph and Mr. Bichachi are talking about, do we say, and you earlier on talked about party formed on the head of something, do you think has for long been riding on ego, and it was time for them to explode?
I think that to a very huge extent, as a people, we have not developed the ability of being comfortable with being questioned. And you can see it at a very rudimentary level, like my senior colleague said. He buys a car and he's driving, and she asks, where are we going? And he doesn't even want. That's the question. Why are you asking? I am the driver. If you want, can I park so you drive? What is so wrong with saying, you know, I am taking this turn, and you have a conversation about that? Again, because we come from settings where cannot be questioned. When, like I was saying earlier, when he goes away and she stays and she manages the home and he comes back and he's asking questions, how dare you ask when you were not here, when we were busy suffering? And those who took it upon themselves to sacrifice and went to the bush and bullets and ate leather cannot be questioned. How can you ask us when we made the ultimate sacrifice? Some of us even died. So no one wants to be questioned. You remember we were saying, pastors start churches. They don't want to be questioned because where were you when the ministry was starting? I think one of the things that I learned in theology school from God, I believe in God, is that God is happy to have an engagement with equals even when they are not equal. He created you, but he says, come, let us reason together. I mean, let me hear your side. And until, I mean, you listen to how people power individuals want Bobi Wine to be questioned. I mean, he's just been through a lot. How dare you question him? Until we build systems where being questioned is not anathema, is not a sin, we are in trouble. Besigye can't be questioned. I mean, his cult will come after you. So you agreed
it was still egos within the party?
It is still egos. And I think for me, the ego comes from a Greek word, a Greek letter I, which is a first person singular. Ego emi. I, myself, I am. And when you have ego emi, I, myself, I am, you cannot be questioned because you are an absolute, you are an ultimate. And until for me, I find an organization, even if it is a company, I'm happy to work with organizations where those who started them are happy to be torn apart, and it is okay. Now, when you find such an organization, you know we are growing. Unfortunately, there are very few in this country.
You talked about the aspect of ideology, Mr. Bichetti, but on a broader perspective, as we continue to discuss Forum for Democratic Change, do we have ideologies enrooted in our political parties, whether it is the NRM or even the other parties in opposition? Or are we riding on formations of leadership structure?
Yeah, I don't think we have clear ideologies. We have very broad thinking. We have those that think about social justice. We have those that think about market, market economy. So these are really broad. So none of these parties have very, very coherent ideologies. The overriding thing for many of them, of course, is democracy and human rights. But in terms of the way we try to frame the ideologies in our parties today, we try to define practices, tactics as ideology. Those are not ideology. Those are simply delivery vehicles. And I think that is one thing that perhaps it takes a lot of time to build clear ideological, orientations.
And Mildred, if I may, and I might sound naive, I am struggling to understand how many of our political parties today would exist if today President Yoweri Museveni said, I'm no longer president. Because I think for me,
you think many of them have formed
the overaching thing here is that they baptize differently, is get rid of the man. So if he's no longer around, you wonder what core thing else they have. Because even when you hear the struggle, they talk about the struggle.
But a party
it
like,
is the struggle to remove an individual.
For example, UPC, Democratic Party, did exist earlier, much earlier, before President Yoweri Museveni came into leadership.
Because they were getting rid of the white man. That was the whole thing.
And the white man went and they're still here.
Then they struggled when they lost power.
If I could just interject.
Yes.
I think maybe if you look at the situation we are in today as a country and in our level of political development, I think the question of is ideology the thing that is most important. I think ideologies exist are well defined in societies where you have which are moving. You have a certain level of stability, so that now what you are the basic things are agreed and they exist. Now it is orientations of what is different, the left, the right, the center. What we have now is an issue of survival, an
Yeah.
issue of political survival, an issue of economic survival, and those things are not going to be driven by grand things such as ideology. They are going to be driven by immediate tactics, what will get us to this level.
The end justifies the means. Well, we're still discussing the news stories that made headlines, and we'll be, for now, taking a very short break. When we return, we'll get to the real issues. Some of the issues that General Mugisha Muntu mentioned in his report after consultation, and how exactly we came to a fairway hotel with FDC saying that Muntu did not give them a chance to dialogue. He did not give them a chance to even study his report and see how they could be to work on some of the issues that he mentioned. That and much more after the break. Now, the dynamics of how Fairway Hotel was also chosen are some that we will be able to discuss at a later stage. But at Fairway Hotel, Sabiti did attend that meeting, whether you were nosing, like the party president said. He said they did not want to go to Katonga because they didn't want a lot of nosing coming in from the media, but also violence that could come in. But let us in on the discussions. What you picked from Fairway Hotel?
Before going to Fairway, we took a drive to Najanankombi and stood there, again, doing what we trained to do. We left Najanankombi, we drove to Katonga Road, again, did what we had to do, and finally ended at Fairway. Let me tell you this, that the decision not to allow General Muntu into any of the official party premises was intentional. That this meeting will not happen at Najanankombi. It should not happen at Katonga. Actually, General Muntu was told the meeting would be at Katonga.
Yeah.
When he reached Katonga, and then they said, no, we have gotten space at Fairway. Premeditated. 2, both sides went with predetermined positions. The General Muntu team had decided to leave. The FDC team had decided there was no backing down. There was nothing they were going to pick from that report. So what we had at Fairway was a facade, you know, a mask that needed to be peeled and just put away. And I should say, to their credit, they managed the drama very well. So they went and sat. And then this youth that is apparently not happy with the meeting shows up and pulls out the party president. Now, before that, we sat somewhere and watched a proper coordination of that group. Okay. So it's not a random group that came and disorganized the meeting. The first time I saw that group with the same composition, bigger in number, with few faces missing this time, was at Naguru during the TDA. They came and pulled out their candidate, Dr. Kizza Besigye. The same group returns to pull out Engineer Patrick Amuriat. At Naguru, Engineer Patrick Amuriat was at the helm of that group. Okay. At Fairway, they apparently came to pull him out, right? That's the message they're putting out there.
What was their reason for pulling out Engineer Amuriat?
I am telling you that this script was written, the videos were laid on the timeline.
In the script, what was the reason?
This script, first of all, was not to allow the other team, because both sides had taken outright stands. So it was a meeting in futility. So what do? Don't take it to the official party structures, because you will give it credibility that it was discussed in FDC. If you take it to Katonga Road, it is the seat of the people's government. Yeah, it is still a structure within the FDC. So you take it to Fairway. In Fairway, this group spontaneously shows up and pulls out their president. The meeting is aborted, right? And then as that is happening, the we are leaving announcement is prematurely released by another person somewhere. Yeah. So both sides got us into a ping pong, and we played along, and that's what happened. And so it was predetermined. But this is what worries me, that the center of FDC's criticism of Yoweri Museveni's NRM has been violence against the citizens, violation of human rights, intolerance, failure to listen to divergent views. That's why the Dr. Besigye's left the NRM, that it had lost track. The General Muntus left the NRM because they said it had lost direction. The Major Kazoras, Augustine Ruzindana, Kano Amanya Mushega, they said this is not the thing we fought for. We fought for a better Uganda. And so they move ahead through, PAFO reform agenda and form the Forum for Democratic Change. But there's a very worrying trend within the youth league, especially of the FDC. And the media has turned left when it is happening right.
Hasn't probed.
We haven't And Mwenda mentioned it one time. And do you know what happened? We went after Mwenda. We got his neck and put it on the wall. the uncoordinated radicalism. Not radicalism in fighting for the country, by the way. I was at Najanankumbi when the Honorable Salam Musumba's car was punctured. And Kaija's car was punctured. Reason, they wanted their leaders to announce the change in parliament that day. Ambassador Waswa Birigwa was held at ransom for 1 hour at Najanankumbi, saying, you first go back and announce a new leader of opposition. Now, when you are projecting yourself as a democratic movement that is out to correct the ills of the NRM, I have always made that argument that you cannot remove an evil spirit and replace it with the devil. That is not transformational change. And so these young people, who controls them, who commands them, who took them to TDA to pull out Dr. Besigye, who brought them to Fairway to puncture the tires of their leaders, to hold an old man of the Birigwa's age at ransom because they want announcements that particular day, who brought them to Fairway to pull out to disorganize a meeting of their elders. Are those the youth that we are mentoring in our political parties that are better than NRM to take over leadership? Okay. Those are the questions we have not asked. You and I, Charles is even more guilty because he has been longer in there, and maybe that's a conversation we need to have as media. Okay,
Raymond Mujuni now has joined us, but we'll be speaking to him in just a while. He will have to apologize, of course, for coming in late on the show. But Charles, I want to come to you. Still at the Katonga meeting, Joseph says, well, this was a premeditated move on both sides, although they say, Engineer Patrick Amuriat says there were two sides. You either split or that was the first one, or the second one is agree to disagree within the party. And the FDC seems to say Muntu, with this report, which was tabled, I think it was on the 25th of September, he didn't even give FDC a time to discuss some of these issues, which we will be looking at. Do you also see this as a day that the Lord had made, like the Christians get to say, and it was just playing the media around?
Yeah, I think I agree that, I mean, all the sides had taken position. There was nothing that document was going to change.
Did they even need to sit? If I could just hold you a bit. Did they need to sit to even discuss a document? Remember, during the consultations, General Muntu announced consultations. Engineer Amuriat said these were not blessed by any structures of the party. So was the party going to bless an activity or look at a report from an activity that the party did not allow?
General Muntu requested the meeting, from what we gather. Okay. And certainly the party, Muntu was a member of the party and a senior member at that. And I think the party was obligated to bend backwards to see what is it that that their leader is presenting, because I'm sure it was in the interest of FDC to try and manage this and keep the unity for as much as they could, even though it was very clear that General Muntu was on his way. So I think the party would have discussed that document in that light, that, okay, what is it that is coming out? There may be things which perhaps they also to work on. So I think whether it was, they didn't authorize the consultation, but anything coming out of it will certainly help inform some of that. Now, what played out at Katonga clearly was I don't want to blame the radicals. I don't want to blame General Muntu, because this is politics, and everybody knew that you have got the media here. This is your do or die day. Muntu wanted to go out with a bang. The FDC was not prepared to give him that bang. So this is all politics that we are seeing playing out. And I think we as media should be able to ask questions, not just of FDC, but also of Muntu, because I think Muntu has not been asked hard questions. Yes. I think the media has kept this. Has given, a victim as an angel. He has not been asked questions, and I think the media, we ought to ask either sides the hard question. If you look at What are the reasons that they are giving to quit?
Well, we're going to be discussing those particularly, but maybe just before I do, Raymond, before we look at the reasons why he quit, these were the reasons for the consultations. One, whether the delegates understood the choice they made for defiance only. Second, whether it was possible for the two strategies to coexist in the party. 3, whether the long-standing conflicts within the party could be resolved and concentrate efforts where it was required most. And lastly, to explore alternative options that would be applicable in resolving these long-standing conflicts. What do these reasons say about General Muntu and his plan or his stay in the FDC that now exists no more?
Thank you so much, Mildred. First of all, I must apologize for coming late. The new formation kept me up till late the front line yesterday. For me, the question is, and not to just look at FDC in the recent, to look at FDC from how does FDC handle its transitions. From the time that Muntu assumed the presidency of the FDC party, his leadership was undermined. And it was clear from the start that he took over the reins of that party from Besigye, that if you build harmony in the party, then the party can move forward. But I think he's learned from the experience of being party president that building harmony within such a divided like FDC is hard. But that's what democracy demands anyway, that you talk to the people you don't agree with. And there's a lot of people in the FDC that didn't agree with Muntu when he was president. And now that he had lost the election, he needed to talk to the people that he didn't agree with. My own understanding is, even as they went into the election in Nambole, and I think this we shared with Sabiti when the election was happening, even as they went into the election in Nambole, it was clear that Muntu's lifeline in the FDC was actually almost over. Because he had, in the campaign period, said, how come that the people who are calling me a mole, the people who are undermining leadership, are not reined in by the party heads? And it's in a way to condone. If you do not stop them, then you condone it. And you have a very divisive election, after which the party president doesn't actually seek to unite the party. When Muntu ascended to the leadership of the FDC, he sought to unite him and Nandala Mafabi, and he wasted a cool 1 year trying to reconcile them and failed. So even at a party presidency level, that had to happen. But also, Muntu noted the contradictions that were coming with the Engineer Oboya Muriat campaign. For those that covered the FDC election, one of the key things during the elections was, do you choose or do you not choose an opposition leadership in parliament in the event that you contest that you won the election?
We don't even know what we are deciding, whether we take the apology or not.
Well, I will consult afterwards. I will consult afterwards. I will consult afterwards.
All right, Tim, let's just listen to him.
First of all, I'll start with answering Charles. I don't think, and what I made from General Muntu's exit, I don't think it's about him versus Besigye. I think it's come back to, and I really feel good that today Joseph is here so that we can have this discussion. I feel like our everyday discussion has been vindicated. Yeah. We have created demigods in politics, where it's become about individuals. And this is the thing I've been singing here. We have created individuals who have become gods of politics instead of having institutions. And that's the thing he's talking about. It is not about him or Dr. Besigye. Because let's be honest, I don't think... No, it's okay. But I don't think General Muntu actually had time to be FDC president. If you followed what happened...
What did he do in the 5 years?
The 5 years. Let's discuss those 5 years. He talked about the first year, he was fighting the fact that they had said he did not win. Then they had reconciliation, investigations, and all that lasted another 2 years. Okay? So I don't think he actually had time to perform as the president of FDC. Okay?
What was he doing there?
But the discussion comes back to
Sounds
what...
familiar, people not having time.
Yes, but the discussion comes back to what I'm talking about.
I'm protecting fabric. I am protecting fabric from all your interruptions.
No. The creation
because
of demigods.
Everything else.
You talked about the fact that, Dr. Besigye is one of the members of FDC. Given. But even in this particular meeting, you heard what they said. Dr. Besigye refused to come. They didn't say that they did not call him, but he refused to come because he said, let them handle the issues, right? But he was the first person that they were willing to have on the table. Then there's this whole idea of the youth that always kidnap people.
You found me just talking about...
It's not the fact that it has happened. The youth and kidnapped so-and-so from having a discussion. Now, I am so appalled as a Ugandan, as a young person, that you're trying to show me an alternative to Museveni, and what you're doing is actually laughing. Because it has become so clear that the idea of democracy, because guess what? If you want to say NRM does not have democracy, at least we're not pretending to have people being kidnapped every time there's a discussion to be had. 2, he talks about those points of there is a Muntu, or there is a presidency, and there is a Besigye power. Listen, we can try and act like that does not exist, but it's the truth. It does. In FDC, if you want to be looked at as credible, from the day Muntu left, you see, it is very laughable to call Muntu a mole and Besigye not. It is.
Would you want to justify that?
No. What I would like to be very clear about, Muntu left the same way Besigye left.
Yeah.
He left the same way Besigye. Why? When did Besigye leave the power that be? Because let's talk about the fact that both... Okay, let's talk about the fact that there is a Besigye, there is a Winnie Byanyima, who are actually even closer to Museveni than Mugisha Muntu was. But it is even I as Fabrice, if today I chose to leave, say I go and stop sitting near Mildred, and you insist on calling me a mole when I have gone and I'm now hanging out with Raymond, I will get to a point where I'll get tired. It gets old. Muntu moved from NRM. Muntu has never been part of
this. How many parties are we going to have out of tiredness, out of accused?
Yes, but you see, that is the beauty of democracy. That is the beauty of democracy. If you remember, just before Mobutu, we don't. And if you remember, just before Mobutu fell, in the last election, do you remember why Mobutu kept postponing the election? Do you still remember why? Every single human being was forming his own party. Fabrice and my entire family, we decided we have also formed our party. In fact, I think, as I'm here, I should also announce that I am going to form my own party. And it will be okay.
You wind up on this. We will
it will be okay.
Yeah.
Well,
final comment on the FDC and
my final comment on the
politics.
FDC is, let's stop calling him names for him doing what is, as you always throw it out there, his constitutional right. He has decided, as a man or as a gentleman who has a sane thinking person, who has decided to go and form his own party. Now, if the FDC is a strong party, as they say they are, what they should do is they should survive this storm, isn't it? Yeah. Now, there shouldn't be a reason as to call him names. It's like that cheating girlfriend that he said, this girl is a cheat, she's a cheat, she's a cheat. She decides to leave you and they say, can you imagine? She's a traitor, she has left, she has left, she has left. Enjoy. I have you. I am a bad person. Why are you complaining?
All right, thank you, Fabrice. I'll give you just a minute, and Samson will be given a minute to wind up on this.
Mine was, first of all, I didn't want to let Fabrice go on the point where he said that they have not had people kidnapping each other in the NRM.
Oh, we've never.
There's never been a contest
From a
for
meeting.
power.
From a meeting.
There's never been a contest for power in
That's why we
the
don't kidnap each
NRM.
other.
So,
but they're outright about
minus a contest, there'll never be a kidnapping.
Yes.
But really, Mildred, and I beg that if journalism could extend this and look deeper, most of the parties we have today were simply formed to assume power. And that's maybe the critical departure that Muntu wants to make. That the UPC was formed to assume power from the colonial masters. DP was formed to guarantee the interests of the Catholics and the Baganda during the time. The NRM itself was formed after assuming power, but for the Marxist idea of controlling and keeping power. Yeah. So this is the first time that you have a political party which is formed out of a disgruntlement with an existing opposition party, and that disgruntlement being that everything we're doing in the party is just a challenge of power.
Isn't that why FDC was formed in the first place?
Could we give him just a minute to wind up? Yes.
Even UPC itself from UPU and UNC. So,
But that's
Just
not
Raymond's time. Gentlemen, it's Raymond's time. It's Fabrice, it's Raymond's time.
And I wanted to maybe borrow from like South Africa. In the Gauteng province, what happened is the opposition party, Democratic Alliance, took over the leadership of the province from the ANC and demonstrated a different style of leadership. So you had, for the first time in South Africa, unemployment was rising, but in the place governed by the opposition, unemployment was going down. And this for me is now the challenge to the FDC.
Okay.
In the areas that the FDC proclaims to have leadership,
yes,
you have LC5, you have the MP, like Kasese, the LC5 is yours, the MP is yours. Demonstrate for us in that small area how different you are as leaders from the existing ruling party.
Okay.
And really to do that, you have to have structures. You have to have your own idea of leadership coming through those structures. Now, the problem is that for FDC, every living day of FDC is a contest to Museveni's power, not a contest to embolden the ideas they have as a party.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think I totally buy into that. Where is the difference? Samson, I give you just 1 minute to wrap up on this discussion. I know it's going to continue for a long time.
I am uncomfortable with the whole word struggle being around, and the demons around struggle have never left us. Whether that struggle was trying to get rid of the colonialists, whoever was bringing his head above, they were asking them what they contributed to the struggle. Then that struggle moved to the struggle to get rid of Obote and the dictators. And again, whoever rose his head, what did he contribute to the struggle? Now again, struggle is back. Again, there are people who will not allow you any chance anywhere, because what have you done to the struggle? I mean, you've never been pepper sprayed. You've never been tear gas. Now again, I hear Bobi Wine is being asked, what has he done for the struggle? He just rose up yesterday. So until we demystify struggles and start thinking and seeing everything in terms of struggles, we have a problem.
Okay.
I hope there is no struggle here to keep.
I realize. No. I need to get out of here. All right. You're still watching the Media Roundtable. Let's take a break and we do return. This was a heated break. See what the gentlemen are doing. But welcome back. It's still the NBS Media Roundtable.
We're in a struggle.
But we'll turn gears. All right, guys. We'll turn gears now away from the Forum for Democratic Change. I know this is a story that is going to continue evolving. Even the new formation says it's just a formation. It's just a name, if we would say so. Probably a new political party that will be formed at a later stage. And Uganda will get to know that. We'll get back to that story at a later stage. But now, we shift gears to another story as well that made headlines in this week. Cash once again in our eyes. Remember the Busoga incident when we had to have money carried in a sack? Under Presidential Ghetto Initiative, the president once again is giving out money to the ghetto people. And direct cash is what was displayed, held by some police officers. And one particular incident covered this week was at Passover Center, Christian Church, that is in Kamocha. Joseph Sabiti, you did cover this story. And it's not the first time we see money being given out to the people. What do you make of this act? Is it that money has now replaced, like some say, money has replaced dialogue, has replaced discussion that, well, if you can't keep speaking to people, just give them money and that is it?
And you see, Fabrice and I have had this conversation a lot of times. The Uganda we want, you know. Have we helped Uganda? or we have simply participated in creating demigods. What have we done well as a media, as civil society, as a nation? We have exalted people to a status of holiness. And that is why the president of my country will go, pick money, and I really felt sorry for my elder brother. I call him my brother because we have a lot of engagements, Kano Shaban Bantariza. I have a lot of respect for him among the leaders in the NRM, and shows up with cash, 100 million. But what does it point to? The breakdown of institutions. You know, if that money had been released from the presidency to down to Kamocha through the proper channels of government, I can assure you, out of 100 million, 10 will reach. There's what we call economic evaporation in government. Money just disappears without trace.
Okay.
And it has been here with.
Making new
You see, economic evaporation is real. The first time I used to hear about it, I have met a member of parliament who said I needed a bailout. I went, I sought help from the presidency. And when I went, I needed just 30 million. They made me sign for 200, and they gave me 30.
Okay.
So those stories are all over there. Now, does that justify the flagging of the cash? I don't know. But the bigger conversation about our institutions, where are the institutions that would have put in place a proper framework for the Presidential Ghetto Initiative that will have a proper process through which help will move from the presidency to the people downtown? How do we deal with economic evaporation? How do we deal with the breakdown in systems? And that's why the conversation we're having earlier is very important. Instead of exalting demigods, creating, you know, we have God number 1, Yoweri Museveni, God number 2, Dr. Kizza Besigye, God number 3, General Mugisha Muntu, God with small words, God number 4, now Bobi Wine, now God number 5, maybe Fabrice. We divert from the issues that matter. In the media, I am as guilty. I keep saying Charles is guiltier because of the longer time. We have not shaped our headlines, our stories about Uganda. We have made the gods, and the gods are back to haunt us. So God number 1 is carrying cash to Kamwecha. God number 2 is always right. It is criminal to sympathize him. And so the gods have become crazy because we have created them and we are not checking them. Right. So the money is a symptom of the breakdown of our institutions. And here is, I went to Parliament and I was doing a story, and an MP was telling me, can you imagine, the president is carrying money? And I said, old man, appropriation powers fall squarely on you. A parliament that has NRM, that has FDC, that has DP, that has GEMA. You appropriate money for donations to the presidency. You don't even put a simple framework that guides donations. You throw the money to the old man. The old man carries it and hands it over to Kano Shaban Bantariza. They carry it in cash to Kamwech. And you know what we have? You try to hold a meeting today that you're going to talk to youth about managing life and how to be progressive, and let Fabrice hold one where he's giving 10,000 and see whether your meeting will have one person. Yeah. So we have brought the dogs to the country, and now the dogs are running the country. Okay. And so the demigods we made are out to haunt us now.
Well, since we're talking about money and talking about institutions and proper channels, Western Union is one channel that you can use, most especially for our, not for Uganda, of course not for Uganda, the government. Is Western Union giving conference. But well, Western Union is one channel. For those who have relatives outside or you need to send and receive, for as low as 6,000 Ugandan shillings, you can be able to send and receive money. I do not know whether the president can use Western Union to send money to the ghetto youth. But I want to come to you, Samson, and particularly on this cash. The president has given out cash, has given out sometimes machines. You have gone in our Up and About segment on the Morning Breeze to some of these areas, and that tells someone the money, someone owns the machines, and that's the kind of stories that are being told.
First of all, I don't want to get into the whole discussion of whether the devil is bad. Because once you're a Christian, you just don't entertain that discussion.
Wow. Can we protect the president?
No.
Fabrice, I protect all the speakers from
The devil being giving money out. Giving money out in cash is bad. So we can't even start to discuss it.
Yeah.
But again, you have to feel for His Excellency the President of the Republic, who every day consumes lies. And after consuming so many lies and not having systems by which you can tell who is lying and who isn't, you get washed away. From as much as I know, having survived the gods of poverty myself, I think and I understand that the ghetto is not a location. Yeah. The ghetto is a condition.
No, it's actually
depending on whether you look at noun or verb. So to go to ghetto location and to give money, for me means you don't yet understand what ghetto is and what you're dealing with. I think that we created a presidential ghetto initiative before we invested in serious research to find out what social conditions have created this global phenomena. Because ghetto is not unique to Uganda. There is ghetto in the US. There is ghetto all over. This is a global phenomena. What has created ghetto? If you're going to deal with a problem, you have to have a solution that is either equal to the problem or bigger than the problem to wash it away. I know from my background that to be where I am, no one threw me free money. No one. And because I worked hard to be where I am, there are certain things you learn through that process of working hard. If you like, for bad examples, for those of you who are repugnant to the name, Bobi Wine came from the ghetto. To be where he is today, who threw him free money? I think he is what he is today because somebody threw him an opportunity. When you're in the worst condition possible, before you get free money, you need to be thrown an opportunity because opportunities create ripple effects that money doesn't. Okay. Now, I think before I am convinced that this all works, I need to find some group of individuals that President Yoweri Museveni has thrown money and they have turned out into big employers. The nature of Murwana, because he also started small, and many big individuals here who started small, are what they are today because somebody did not throw them money, but gave them an opportunity.
Fabrice, I want to come to you on the same issue. We've seen a lot of handouts being given, but the question that stands, do we have structures through which, whether it is cash being given, that can be used to develop this cash? Because what we saw, for example, in Kamocha was someone gets on that small microphone and starts telling people to come and register. We see them registering on camera, and those are the very people who are going to hand the money. Clearly, there are no structures.
Like Joseph said, we have these conversations, and Raymond, you know, we've had long conversations about these things. For a start, I have been one of the, I think the only one on the panel here today that has run in an election. It is run in. We have run smaller elections. Yes, that has run in an election. And what I will tell you is, one, Samson touched a very important aspect of it. One, the president sits fed with lies every day. Two, Ugandans have a very interesting phrase that you need to remember. Mfunirawa. We have moved from ideals, ideas, and values and moved to Mfunirawa.
Sure.
Every discussion you have with people, and I'm telling you, these are things I heard from people straight up. They say, Ampa, Gwempa. Basically, loosely translated to, the one who gives me is the one that I give. Now, when you talk about the president coming with opportunities and all that, we have moved from being broad or long-term thinkers to Kagwirawo kind of thinkers. The youth that you're talking about, the conversations that we're having, all these people talking about the president shouldn't have done this or that, doing the same exact things. These MPs that today are lecturing Joseph with on why would the go and give this money, you go and check in their constituency. Yeah. When they were running their elections, they did the same exact thing. You have a group of people today. We are dealing with Ugandans today that if you call them and say, Joseph is having a discussion on your development, sanitation and health, they will not come. You tell them that there is a Raymond somewhere in Bunamwaya giving away cash. Guess what? They will move. They will even pay transport to go there and receive 1,000. Personally, as Fabrice, I have given a women's group in Entebbe, which was supposed to be for the women's circle. Do you know they decided to divide it amongst themselves? That they were saying it's okay. 200 shillings. But I mine. This is money that my idea was to develop the women. You're dealing with a population today. No, you're dealing with a population today. First of all, I think we've had this discussion here before. The first thing we need to do for Uganda's politics today is we remove money from politics.
How do we do it practically?
Yeah, okay. Now, the problem is it's become impossible. All these people today who are telling you, I have good ideas and all blah, blah, blah.
The ideas about
those same people have to have cash. They will tell you, you've had people in elections tell you, do you know what? You have good ideas, but you're broke. That's the problem. Yeah. Otherwise, you would have won. Haven't you heard that? Yeah. If we're going to talk about, you know what? I love the fact that every time we sit here, we get idealistic of what the reality is of Uganda today. No, but you see, moving forward would be, moving forward is not my words and yours, Samson. We need to have practical solutions for Uganda. Today where we are is you are not going to have, and all of you here, I'm sure know this, you are not going to have a conversation with Uganda if you don't have cash.
That's true. And I totally agree to the fact where someone says you have the ideas. And I already have.
Yes.
That has come out through. I want to come to you, Raymond, to wrap up on this issue. The cash bonanza. Not the first time, not the last time probably, but no progress.
I like the fact that you have worked with ascendancy of money. Those of us with little money at all last week don't have money to give out.
Just so that where you are, I do not have.
All right.
Yes.
You have that.
But
take it up. Yes.
Mine, for me, really, it's about just the consciousness of human beings. And I bet one day just go to the Acacia Mall, the rooftop, and just look over Kampala and see what it looks like. This idea of money doesn't start and end with Museveni. It's the colonial governments got here and gave mirrors to Semeka Kungu and asked to give them land. If you interrogate and probe the ownership of the Kisementi area, which is one of the most productive areas in Kampala, it's all completely Asian-owned. And you've got to ask yourself the question, what transaction happened for the Asians to get land in Kisementi? Now, you will find that the transaction that happened was exchange. Money, in that time, money being mirrors, gold, and the like. And the Semeka Kungulu families, the legacy-rich Buganda families, really got their wealth through that. But what that also meant is that once you transacted your people, once you transact the consciousness of your people, it means that you have to relegate them. So if the Arabs came to establish a Krishnamat mall there, what that meant is you would have to have your people come and build it. And those people would not have to walk from Chadondo to come and build it. So they walk, build, and decide to stay somewhere close, which is Kamwocha. And that's how you create a ghetto around the very rich neighborhood. Ghettos, and if you go to very poor neighborhoods, there won't be ghettos there. Everyone there is a complete ghetto in themselves. But ghettos are a realization that I see richness, I know how it functions, I just can't touch and feel it. So you have a person in Kamwocha who goes to Nagu to clean a swimming pool, but doesn't have clean running water in Kamwocha. And
But he works on
Yes,
clean running.
yes, he sees the clean running water. And then his children come and visit him when he's at his workplace, and they're like, but daddy, can I be in a swimming pool too? And that's how you create the impression in the mind. And the man says, I have just 10 years left to live.
Okay.
How can I get a swimming pool? A Bantariza shows up with money. The consciousness of that man has been broken down to the point that you are inferior. And the only way you're going to get level is if you have economic might. So if Bantariza shows up and is giving out 1,000, regardless of the fact that I have 20,000 in my pocket, that 1,000 contributes to the swimming pool dream. But also that 1,000 is a, I don't know if you watched the clip of the man, it's a transaction that it's your to give me.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, so you have transactions that people now realize that I pay a tax to this government. It's not going to be accountable to me today or tomorrow. So, nzifunira.
And that's the only
yes,
way.
Get it.
Too bad. Charles, you're the very last one, and no, in no fashion is it according to economic status. But please have your take on the cash bonanza.
I think it's a little naive for us to, and many Ugandans, and us in the media, to think that the presidential ghetto initiative is to help the ghetto out of, out of poverty. It's not. Just look at the timing. Just look at why. This is essentially political money to try and keep the, and you see the ghetto has been starved. So this money is to essentially keep the ghetto silent. We have seen it everywhere. We saw it in Toga. We saw it when Amama came out and was, trying to make politics. So this is political money. And like Fabrice said, this is really, it's never going to help. It's just money that is taken. The people giving it don't expect it to achieve anything, to better their lives